All right, YouTubers, welcome back. My name's Dave, like always. And you found do it yourself, do it right. Got my Common Motors hat on. Got my classic Octane shirt on. That can really only mean one thing, or many others. But anyways, we're talking classic bikes today. And what we're going to talk about is what I look for and what I ask, the questions that I ask before I go and when I go to buy a classic bike. Now, this is just me. This is what I do. I'm not saying this is, the law, but this is what I do, and maybe you guys can adopt it too. So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it right now. Alright guys, so I wish the weather was a little bit nicer. I'd move one of the bikes out and really go over it. But I got the blue CB360 out here at the end of the garage, and I'm gonna do what I said. Basically, when I start looking for a vintage bike, I search online, YouTube, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all the for sale sites. There's a lot of vintage bike for sale groups on Facebook, so that's a really good place. Unfortunately, most of those bikes, they're not local, and I don't really travel too much to find bikes. Furthest I've gone is down to Jacksonville, up to Charleston. I kind of stay within a 2-hour radius. Anyway, so when I'm online and I see a bike that's interesting, my very first question is, does it have a title? And the reason why I do that is, most of the time, if I'm looking for a project, my whole goal is to buy the project, rebuild it, make it run, make it roadworthy, and then try to sell it later on down the road. And there's very few that I hold on to permanently. In fact, I really only have 2 forever bikes, and that's one of them. And the other one is out on the back patio, and that's the little cafe racer that I built. So first thing, ask for a title. And for me, the reason why I do that is because I plan on reselling it, and a bike with a title is so much easier to resell. This little Yamaha right here, that is for sale, by the way. It never fails. Whenever I try to do a video, one of the neighbors makes an excessive amount of noise. So, the Yamaha is for sale. Now, I didn't buy that bike. I technically traded for the bike, and the bike does not have a title. It has a, bill of sale that I knew the owner, so I knew the bike was not stolen or any of that nefarious stuff. I'll get into that in just a minute. But, so question number 1, make sure it has a title. If it doesn't have a title, then my next question is, what's the VIN number? And the reason why I ask that is because if the seller doesn't want to give up the VIN number, well then I'm not buying the bike, because who knows if it's stolen or not. Now if they give you the VIN number, you can boy oh boy, you can call the sheriff's department, give them the VIN number, they can run the VIN check. In Georgia, you can buy a bike on a bill of sale and then they require a VIN number check to get it registered, and that's what I did here with the Yamaha. It is registered, as you can see. There's my plate in my name, and I ride it around. I love it. It's for sale. It's online. Hopefully it'll probably be sold by the time this video comes out, but anyways, so title, VIN number, those are the first couple of things that I ask. And then, you know, before I even go and look at it, those are the things that I ask. Then I'll ask some other questions, mileage, what's wrong with it, yada yada yada. If it's a project bike, you know, wiring issues, anything like that, I just ask those kind of questions. If it's close, I don't even really bother. I just, you know, when can I come look at it, kind of thing. So those are the first really 2 steps. All right, so say it has a title, or they give me the VIN number and I know the bike is not stolen. First thing I do when I go to look at the bike, actually in person, is, you know, obviously you shake the guy's hand, or girl. This blue bike I actually bought from a woman. She was a infectious disease doctor, and that was right before COVID, so that's kind of like a weird thing. Anyways, so, you know, meet and greet, whatever. And then, you know, I basically just say, tell me the story of the bike. And, you know, so if the person tells you this grand story, you know, knows everything about the bike, knows the history, I don't really think too much. Now, if the person, you know, basically says, oh, I bought it a couple weeks ago and now it's for sale again, it's usually a red flag. Now, what I do is I let the person just ramble on, you know, tell me the story, all this other stuff. And the reason why I do that is because I'm going to basically question them later on. You know, so for example, this blue bike, the Honda CB360 that my girlfriend rides, I talked to the lady. The lady's like, I bought it. It runs, you know, but it quits. You can go down the road and it quits. She's like, I've had it for a few months. She, you know, she was upset with it. She, you know, it wasn't reliable, yada yada yada. And of course she's a doctor, so she needed something reliable. She had a car or whatever, but she wanted an old vintage bike. And, you know, with vintage bike comes vintage bike problems. And I knew exactly what the problem was when I looked at the bike. I just, you know, I knew. Wiring. This bike had a wiring issue. So, not to get into specifics with this bike, but I, you know, I let the person just ramble on. This last bike that I bought, XL 175, the guy just, I did this and I did that, and this bike came from here, and it was a parts bike, and I put it together, and he knew the whole background. So when you know, the story is like that, it kind of gives me a nice, warm, and fuzzy. So, you know, he told me everything that he did, which was some pretty decent work. There was some things that was wrong. You know, check those videos out, XL 175 videos. The link will be above my head. But yeah, so he gave me the whole story, the whole rundown, and I felt comfortable. Same with this lady. You know, she was upfront and she was straightforward, saying that the bike had electrical issues. She had it back and forth to the shop. They never really fixed. They never really found the issues, and so on and so forth. So that's what I do. I ask the person to tell me the story of the bike, and the reason why I do that is so I can question them about their story later on down the line. So now after they've given me their story, I basically just do a walk around of the bike. I usually start at the front. I'll usually start up here at the wheel, look at the brakes, headlights, you know, the tank. The tank is a big one. Dents, you know, obviously going to detract value. But not even just that, the inside of a vintage bike tank. You need to look at the inside of the tank. If you open it up and it's rusty, you might want to run. You know, if you don't want to deal with a rusty tank, there are ways to fix rusty tanks. I'm not going to get into all those, but that's one of the things. Look at the tank. It's one of the big things. And then, you know, later on, I look basically over the whole bike. From the front to the top, to the tank, to the engine, we'll get into the rest of the engine in a minute. You know, seats and all this good stuff, tires. You know, depending on what your plan is for the bike, some of this doesn't really matter. If you plan on turning a bike into a cafe racer and you plan on, you know, trashing the seat and the side covers and all this other stuff, you don't really have to worry about it. But if you plan on restoring the bike, you know, if you plan on bringing it back to original condition, yeah, all that stuff matters, because down the line, that's money. So that's an important piece. Know what you want to do with the bike before you really start looking for a bike. You know, what's the point of buying, say, a dual sport if you want to make it into a cafe racer? That just doesn't make any sense. So know what you're buying, know what you're looking for, and what you're looking for it for, basically. This bike, I wanted a nice bike for my girlfriend to ride, and that's exactly what it is. It's not completely original. It's got a different exhaust and stuff on it, but it's mostly original. And I was looking for a good solid bike, and you know, that's what I got. All right, so now that the you know, the person gave me the story, I've looked over the bike, you know, for what I'm looking for. Now is the time when I start questioning the people about their story. Now, for instance, I bought a CB 750 up in New York when I was up there last summer, and the seller stated that his grandfather was the original owner of the bike. His grandfather passed away, went to his uncle, he bought the bike from his uncle. And so then, you know, I was just asking like regular old questions about, like, you know, hey, what was your first memory of the bike, and you know, what did your grandfather do with the bike, and yada yada yada. And the guy had all the answers, you know, like that. So, you know, that made me feel good about the story. It wasn't like the guy was stuttering or, you know, trying to make a story up or whatnot. So he was definitely very believable. And you know, that's something that, you know, it adds to the you know, the good feeling of buying a bike, that you're not just buying somebody's junk that they bought and then they want to try to offload it on you. So that just adds to the good feeling of buying a bike. And a lot of buying these old vintage bikes is about your gut feeling. Now one time, my brother-in-law and I, we went to look at an XL 250, right? And that was in New York. And I walked up, and there's this gentleman, you know, he's working on a F250 in his driveway. You know, we say, hey, hello, whatever. And then this lady comes out of the house, and she's the one trying to sell us the bike. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, why is this woman trying to sell me the bike if the gentleman out front was the owner of the bike? So that was red flag number one. Red flag number two was she didn't know anything about the bike. Like, why are you trying to sell a bike that you don't really know anything about? It's a never-ending affair. Even when it's raining, the neighbors are always making noise. If it's not the neighbor next door, it's the neighbor down there. And if it's not them, well, now they're making, you know, it's never ending here at Do It Yourself, Do It Right. But anyways, so this lady was trying to sell me a motorcycle that she knew absolutely nothing about. And I'm like, well, why isn't the guy trying to sell me the bike? Why isn't he telling me the story of the bike? And it just, I didn't get a warm and fuzzy. The bike was cheap too. It was dirt cheap. And that was, you know, another thing that was kind of concerning, was that they were trying to sell it so cheap. So, long story, even longer. I didn't buy the bike because it didn't give me a warm and fuzzy. My gut just didn't feel right. And, you know, they didn't have a title, and I didn't get the VIN number. It was a quick little, oh, let's go look at this bike, you know, fairly quickly. So I didn't even really take my own advice. But I didn't buy the bike. So drove down to Albany and back for nothing really. So yeah, gut feeling, super important. All right, so now that either you have a good feeling in your gut about the bike, and you want to continue on with talking to the person about the bike or looking at the bike, the next thing I do is I start to get technical, I guess. Now, some of these people that are trying to sell these old bikes, they might not know anything about them. Like, really, the lady that I bought this bike from, she knew absolutely nothing about this bike. She just wanted a vintage bike to be cool. It's the cool thing to do nowadays. And she really didn't know what she had, to be honest with you. She didn't know that she had a good bike. She just had a bike with an electrical issue, and that electrical issue was a PAMCO ignition, which I'm not going to get into those. They're garbage. If you have one and you like it, I'm sorry, but they're garbage. I get technical with them. I start asking, you know, like, when was the last time it ran? You know, when was the last time it was on the road? Do you have registration? Do you have the title? Is your name on the title? Because that's a very important thing. You know, a skip title, basically somebody bought a bike and they have the title for it, but they didn't ever register it in their name, and then you're trying to buy it, and that's basically what they consider a skip title. Some states are okay with that and some are not, so do your research on your state. The state wants their money. They want that sales tax money, so that's why some states are okay with it. Georgia, you know, I've never had to deal with it, but I don't exactly know. But anyways, so technical questions. Compression. Have you ever done a compression check? Does it have compression? And then if they say, oh, I don't know, well, then that's when I get down and I check the compression. Is the engine locked up before you even ask compression? And the easiest way to check compression is all these old bikes, they all have kick starts. Just, you know, kick it over, right? If it has resistance, then it has compression. If it just pushes through super easy, depending on the size of the motor, of course, you know, the little XL 175, it pushes pretty easy. It's a single cylinder, pushes through pretty easy. But it has, you know, it has compression there. So I knew that, you know, that it'd run. Now, electrical issues, like some people, does it have spark? I don't really worry if the bike has spark or not, because the spark is wiring and components, and I can change those. Those are fairly easy, even though I hate wiring. Wiring sucks, but it's easy. Those are easy things to change, and they're fairly cheap to diagnose. It's nice though. Pull a plug, look into cylinders, you can do that. I have brought my borescope with me before to check cylinders. Typically, if I'm going to look at like a 4-cylinder bike, you know, some of the bigger bikes, you can borescope cylinders, but you got to make sure you have the tools. You got to make sure you know the tools that you have to bring to pop those out. You could ask to borrow tools if you want them, but you know, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to bring my own tools. So compression is the biggest thing for me. I don't want to dive into a motor to rebuild it, and rings and pistons and upper ends and lower ends and all that stuff. You know, if I'm looking to flip a bike, I don't want to deal with all that. So I make sure that it has compression, because there's a fine line where you get to with parts to where your bike is just not, you're not going to make any money off from it. So compression is important. So for me, you know, if I'm, like I said, if I'm flipping bikes, gas tanks, no dents, no rust in the tank, and compression and title. Those are the 3 main things, and story, obviously. Sometimes, you know, the story of the bike I like more than the bike. My 360 that I turned into a cafe racer, the backstory behind that bike is it's just awesome. You know, I think it's a great story. Technically, I'm the second owner, because that was a skip title. The original owner, you know, bought it in '76, rode it in New York City. It's even got the original dealer sticker on it. Then retired down here, crashed it, put the bike away. Then the guy that I bought it from got it from his estate, and then I ended up with it because the bike was too little for the guy's wife. He bought it for his wife, and his wife was I guess a bigger lady, and the bike is small. So I ended up with it. There's a little bit more information in that story, but anyways, it's a good story. Check that video out. You know, link up here. It's my my 360 that I turned into a cafe racer. You know, now if you're looking for a bike to turn into a cafe racer, you know, a lot of this stuff really doesn't matter to you. Yes, tank is going to be important because you're going to be saving the tank. Frame with a title is very important. But then a lot of the other stuff, you're going to be changing your setup. You're going to be changing it up. You know, wiring harness and rims and tires, and you know, the engine. Yes, you got to make sure that that's, you know, the way it is. But if you plan on doing a complete rebuild, you know, cafe racers, you can take basically a bike that's ready for the dumpster and turn it back into, you know, turn it into a cafe racer and be totally fine. You just need the bones, basically. You need a frame, you need a motor and a title. Makes it easier. But even a lot of the cafe racers around here, they don't have titles, they just have bill of sales. So cafe racer guys, if that's what you're into and that's what you're building, it makes it a whole lot easier. Now if you're kind of like me, you want something more original, but you don't really care that it has some aftermarket stuff like this bike. You know, I don't care that it's got the aftermarket exhaust there. You know, then it's a little bit difficult. Then it's a little bit more in depth. Now, typically I don't test the electrical system if the bike has been sitting in a barn or in a garage or under an awning. I don't test the electrical system when I'm at the place, because if you plug in a battery and you turn the switch on and it melts the bike down, it, you know, sparks and smokes and, you know, puffs all that stuff out. You're basically buying the bike, and you know, now you're buying a bike that's, you know, melted down. So I don't usually test all that until I get home. I get a battery and, you know, controlled environment. I have all the parts and pieces off. I've already looked at the wiring harness to make sure that there's not any, you know, mice chewings and whatnot. I did have a TX 650 that I bought from a guy. Wiring harness was trash. It's in my past projects video, link to that above my head. That wiring harness was terrible. I didn't even bother. Somebody put a little push starter button in that. Really the only reason why I bought the bike was because it had a title and it had all the main pieces there, and I just planned on flipping it. It was a good cafe racer building starting off point. I got the bike running. I changed the wiring harness, got the bike running, and I sent it on down the road. Made a little bit of money off from it. You know, that's what I like to do. But anyways, yeah, so if you're looking to keep a bike original, you know, you want a good starting point. And you know, those bikes are getting harder and harder and harder to find, especially if you're looking for like a CB 350. A 354 is going to cost you a ton of money. These 360s are going up in price now. 750s are basically unobtainable and at a decent price nowadays. I got lucky, got that one in New York. Now I will say that location does matter on price. The two things that matter on price, well, three things really: condition of the bike, location, and title. Now if you have a title, if the bike has a title, it's going to be priced a little bit more because it's easier to buy and sell. That's just all. Even the people on Facebook agree with that statement, and that's something, right? That's something. So the second thing is location. You'll see people say, well, how much is this bike worth? And I'm located in East Nowhere, Nebraska. Now I don't know about this Nebraska place, but I can assume that there's not a big classic bike culture out there. Now here in Savannah, there is a demand, believe it or not, for classic bikes. There are a lot of people that want classic bikes. I don't know if it's the hipsters with SCAD or you know, old retirees coming down from up north and they want these bikes because this is what they learn to ride on, you know. So there's a big demand here in the Savannah area, and you know, down in Florida and Charleston. There is a demand for these bikes. So location does matter on price. Now if you don't mind traveling, you know, go travel to get a decent bike at a decent price. So title, price, and condition. Those are the three things that are gonna, you know, that's gonna determine your price. How much you want to sell it for, or how much you're willing to pay for it. Now, like I said, prices are going up. Some bikes are just, you know, if you find a Kawasaki 3-cylinder 2-stroke motorcycle and you don't buy it, if it's, you know, in decent shape, then you know, there's something wrong with your head, because those are super hard to find and they're super expensive. These guys right here, these little RDs, you know, they're not far behind. They're not far behind those Kawasaki's. You know, she's a 2-stroker. You know, she sounds like a dirt bike. She goes ping, 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 and you know, it sounds good and it smells good. So yeah, that's the stuff that I do when I'm looking for a vintage bike. Now, if there's something that you do, you know, that I didn't really cover when you're looking to buy a vintage bike, you know, put that down in a comment block. You know, I'm interested to see, you know, people's technique. Now, I don't typically negotiate price until I'm got my eyes on the bike. I have never bought a bike sight unseen, like on eBay or anything like that. I've never done that. I like face-to-face. I like cash. You know, cash is king. But I don't typically negotiate price until I see the bike. Now, I have a couple of times in the past, and I'll agree on a price, and then I get to see the bike, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have. You know, I've done that before, and I've ended up not actually buying the bike because I didn't want to pay for it. I didn't want to pay the extra money, and the people didn't want to negotiate anymore. So yeah, I've learned to you know, negotiate price in person. And I will say, like I just said, cash is king. Now, if you say somebody wants $2,000 for a bike and you show up with $1,500, you might get the bike for $1,500, even though they say it's firm. You know, you show them the Benjamins, and you know, somebody might jump. Now, when I'm selling a bike, I try to price it reasonable. I'm not trying to, you know, make a ton of money on these old vintage bikes. I try to price them reasonably. Now, this bike I have for sale, and I'm asking $4,200 for it. Now, if you don't know anything about RD 350s, you'd be like, wow, you want that much money for one of them old 1975 bikes? But try and go buy one. Try and go buy one that's in that decent of shape, that runs that good and rides, and they're hard to find. So even the Facebook gods think that the bike is priced reasonably, and that you know, that shocked me. So I got $4,200 on it. Everybody's willing, you know, comment in the block below. It might be sold by the time this video comes out. Hopefully, it might not be. It might still be sitting here in the garage, me enjoying it, because I don't have to sell it. And that's one good thing about being a seller. I don't have to sell it, so I don't really have to negotiate on price that much. You know, it's not costing me anything to sit right there, other than insurance and gas. And, you know, when I renew the tag, which I've already done. But anyways, so if you guys digested all of that, you know, awesome. If you have any more questions, you know, go ahead and throw them down in a block, because I think that's going to do it for this video. Kind of straightforward. I wish the weather was nicer, but it's raining and they're working. I'm sorry for the, you know, the interruptions that those guys, you know, the noise basically. Wish it was nicer. I'd go outside and then, you know, I'd really dig in and show you, you know, pull side covers and all that other stuff. But I think you guys get the gist of, you know, when you're looking over a bike, what to look for, you know, and, you know, you can see if a wire is, you know, open, skin chewed up, that kind of thing. But like I said, I typically don't even really worry about the wiring because I'm going to go through it anyways. So, but if you're not confident in your ability to find wiring issues, then, you know, if the bike looks like the wiring is a rat's nest, you might want to step back and step away from that bike. But there are, you know, they come up for sale every once in a while, so you gotta be vigilant if you're looking for a good project or a nice bike. They come and they go pretty quick, especially here in the Savannah area. You know, Mike at Coastal Empire Moto. He's on it, doggone it. You gotta beat him to the punch. Sometimes you gotta pay a little extra because, you know, he's willing to get there, and, you know, if you're at work and anyways, whatnot. I don't want to ramble on. Like I said, you guys digested all that. Great. If you have any questions, put it in the comment block below. I'll definitely answer. And I think this is probably going to be the last video of me down here, down south. Some of the rest of my videos are all going to be up north, probably freezing my tuchus off. But anyways, like always, till next time, thanks a lot. I had to get rid of that reflector back there. I think that is a great replacement.